Thank you for joining us for part 1 of What's in the Letter. I'm honored to share with you one of my most endearing friendships. I was connected to this brother at Virginia Union University, VUU, and he has been a brother in every sense of the word. We have shared our lives together, as well as the wisdom we have extracted from it. Today, Cory talks about his entrance into the Navy, as well as his experience at home leading up to his departure. Please use the hashtag JDO3podcast when posting about today's podcast. And now, part 1 of What's in a Letter with Cory Perkins. Bro.
Hey, what's going on, my brother?
Man, I am excited. You know, we already been chatting. I had to stop the dialogue and say, wait a minute. Because
yes, sir.
How we go. Man, I remember some of the dialogues we had at Virginia Union.
Yes.
I was honored and privileged to be able to receive that wisdom from you. And we've been brothers. And one of the things that we didn't talk a lot about was military life, and I thought it would be really cool. Yeah, I know, right? And so we've been able to sharpen each other over the years. We've been able to correct each other over the years.
Yes, brother, you have been that Jiminy Cricket on my shoulder many times. That compass is like a perk. Don't do that. I'm like, wow, okay. You know, and sometimes I'll be thinking about something, thinking like, I'm gonna get ready to do something, and it's like, nah, Johnny's in the back of my head. It's like, nah, Perk. That's not the way to do that, Perk. You know, so yeah, my brother. Just almost 30 years we've been friends, man.
That is right. 1997. I mean, like 93.
No, 93.
93.
Yes, sir. That's when we first met, man. And hit it off from day one. You, me, and our brother Adam Robinson.
Yes.
Three the hard way.
Yeah.
You know, and I've told people, you know, under no uncertain terms, man, you know, their family does not always mean sharing someone's bloodline.
Yeah.
You and Adam are family. You are my brothers until from now till the time God calls me home. And I am blessed to have had your wisdom and counsel, man of God, in my life. You know, and it's just a blast to sit here and speak with you. And I do thank you for allowing me to share in this podcast today.
Oh, I'm excited. One of the best Thanksgivings I had was my first Thanksgiving, and that was at your mother's house.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I remember y'all's interaction, and I think that's where I wanted us to talk today, and not specifically solely about your mother, who was an amazing woman, but at the same token, I was thinking about military life and what it was like to communicate being a young man. I know that was hard for her to see you get on a ship and bounce. Like, are you serious? Your oldest boy take it off? Like, what was that like?
It was real deep. My sojourn into the Navy. The thing is, at first I did not want to go. You know, I had been accepted to Virginia Union right out of high school. I went to my mother, showed her the acceptance letter, and she gave me a hug, and she was very proud of me and said, "Well, baby, I'm glad that you got into college, but we ain't got no money." I don't know what you're going to do. And I was very, very disheartened, you know, because of that. I'm like, wait a minute, all my life you beat me in the head about school and grades or whatever. And I do that and I get into college and now you say you can't send me. So it was just really a chance call from the recruiter. I'm originally from Harlem, New York, and the recruiter's office was on 125th Street, which is the main thoroughfare there in Harlem. So unbeknownst to me, he gets a list of young men in the area who are either getting ready to graduate from high school or graduated from high school. And again, unbeknownst to me, he spoke to some of my counselors or whatever. So he started calling me. And at first I'm like, well, no, I'm not going into the military. Me being, the Afrocentric, very pro-Black person that I am, I make no apologies for that, knowing the history of this country, and especially when it comes to Black people and the military. Yeah. Black folks have served this country honorably. In fact, the very first person to die for the liberty of this country was a man by the name of Crispus Attucks, at the battle, at the Boston Massacre, But oftentimes as Black people, we would go to other people's countries and fight for rights that we did not enjoy ourselves. Yeah. And in fact, there were times when we would come back from foreign wars and be treated just harshly and crazily. You're fighting during World War I to save Europe, and then you come back and then there are instances of Black GIs being lynched, and their genitals cut off, and they're in uniform. During World War II, Black people were regulated to segregated companies, and when you look at movies about World War II, oftentimes you don't think that any Black folks served in the military during World War II because all you see is white people. But, Black folks... That's the way they
portray it, yeah.
That's the way they portray it, exactly. So it is all of that really kind of fit my worldview at the time with going into the military. And I would tell my recruiter that, sometimes calmly as I'm speaking now, and other times with some choice words, but he was persistent. And I'll never forget one time he called and we talked. And he said, "Look, brother, I understand where you're coming from. I definitely do. Why don't you at least come in and talk to me face to face? We've been on the phone, talk to me face to face, see what I have to offer. You have a high school diploma, a clean record, you're in a rough neighborhood, because I live in this neighborhood, so I know how rough it is, but you've managed to stay clean and stay positive. We want you to, we want to save you. We want to make sure that you continue to do that, because a lot of your friends are not." And he was absolutely right. I knew people who were selling drugs at the time, were in gangs at the time, some who were, gone to jail or what have you. And by God's grace, I was never mixed up in all of that. So I took him up on his offer. And I went down to the recruiting office, and he and I sat down there and talked a little while. And he asked me a lot of questions about what kind of person I am, what I like to do, and what have you, And at the end of our meeting, I took every book and pamphlet that he had in his office. Of course, this is 1989, so there was no internet. Yeah. There was no YouTube. Yeah. You actually had to pick up a book and read it. So, and that's what I did. I took every pamphlet that he had and book that he had, and I came home, got myself a big jug of ice water, and I sat down at the kitchen table, and I spread them all out, and I read. And even though my walk with God was not as strong as it is now, I had what a lot of Christian children have. I had a drug problem. My grandmother drugged me to church on Sunday. So I had the beginning of some kind of spirituality at that time. So I prayed on it. I did pray on it and let God guide me in that. And I was like, you know what? This man is right. I have a high school diploma. I have a clean record. I want to get out of New York. Let's just go ahead and do this. I did not tell my mother, and that's the thing. I did not tell my mother. I saw that this was going to be a decision that I had to make for myself as a man. And I was 21, and I went back and I signed my paperwork, a couple of weeks later or whatever. And I never forgot, I came home and my mother wanted to fuss at me about something, about dishes or not sweeping out steps or something. My mother was an Olympic level fussing champion. She could fuss with the best of them. So she was fussing me about something. I just looked at her and said, Ma, I've joined the Navy. I leave in 30 days. I just walked away from her. And she stopped dead in her tracks. Yeah. And God forgive me, it just felt so good. Because I was able to just shut her down with that. Like that. I was like, I'll just shut her down. Yeah. Nothing. And She's like, you did what? And I sat her down. I said, Ma, look, I want to get out of New York. I want to do something with my life. I want to go to college. I've been accepted. You don't have the money to send me. So what am I about to do? Uncle Sam is going to pay for college, and also do some other things for me. Yeah. So it took her a little while to come around, but finally she did. And I was on the 30-day delay program, and I'll never forget when it was time for me to leave. We went to the airport, and I was waiting for the plane. And when they called, my plane was myself and 6 other young men from New York City going to Great Lakes, Illinois, which is the Navy boot camp. And I remember hugging her. My little brother was 4. Yeah, Bashari was 4, And I remember telling my mother, I said, I'm going to come back a better man. Yeah. And she cried. Along with some of the other moms there, and my mother being the kind of person that she was, very friendly and outgoing, she actually kind of made friends with some of the other moms that were there, and my stepdad, shout out to Stan Fisher at Grace, who's no longer with us. He served in the Army. His relationship with me, that got deeper as well. He would never speak about his military service, until I told him that I was going into the service. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and he and I are talking. He gets up to go to the refrigerator and said, do you want a beer? I said, I want a beer. I don't drink. What are you talking about? He said, well, look, you're going to be a vet. Do you want a beer? I said, nah, I don't want a beer, but thank you, But it was that thing about now I'm going to do what he did. Yeah. So now he and I have something a little even deeper to talk about, and that brother gave me a lot of wisdom, even about some of the people that I was hanging out with and thought were really cool, and they were. I had one friend of mine, and he said, Cory, you and this individual, you're not going to be friends after you come back from boot camp. I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, Cory, you're a doer. Yeah. He's a talker. He always talked about going to the police academy, talked about going to the military, talked about this, talked about that. You're doing it. And doers and talkers don't hang out. And I was like, wow, blew my mind. I took it with a grain of salt at that time, but it wasn't until after I came back from boot camp and, looked this brother up or whatever and saw how much I had changed in just a few weeks that I had been, and sometimes you just have to love people. You meet people where they are, and God may have another path for you to go on, but that person is not the same person who needs to be on your path. Yeah. So you have to walk your path, walk the path that God has you to walk, and love that person from a distance. And that's what happened with this particular individual.
Thank you for spending time with us in discussion. We appreciate the tweets to #JDO3podcast and look forward to having great dialogues with this community. You can tweet at Cory at PetKDaddy1906 on Twitter, and you can tweet at me at Johnny Ogletree 3. In part 2, we will look at the power of words and the importance of communication through letters. Be sure you enter the conversation online. You can find any post by using the hashtag PastorJDO3.